Everyone who are joining us from all over the world. It's great to have you here. We welcome you. Let us know in the chat where you are joining us from. My name is Solomon, and I'm the chair for the Youth Leadership Council at Global Fund for Children. I'm the founder and executive director of a youth-led organization called Africa Rise Foundation. Just for your information, we have a simultaneous interpretation between Spanish and English. So please take a moment to choose the language you prefer listening in by using the Zoom interpretation feature. We'd also like to invite you to send us any questions you'd like to ask these young leaders via the chat or the Q&A. And I'll ask the round of questions from the audience. A few days ago, we joined the world in celebrating International Youth Day. This is a day to acknowledge and amplify the importance of youth participation in global development. For us at GFC, this includes inclusive participatory grant-making practices, listening to young people, what they care about, and the ways they want to be involved in grant-making, from the design stage to the decision-making stage where the grantee partners are chosen. Today, you get to hear from 4 young people who participated in the Spark Fund, a revolutionary participatory grant-making process by Global Fund for Children and Avast Foundation. This event focuses on the experiences of the 4 amazing panelists from Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas, who were panelists for the Spark Fund. At this point, I would like to invite Nasra to introduce the Spark Fund, Avast Foundation, and GFC. Over to you, Nasra.
Thank you so much, Solomon, and welcome everyone. So I'm going to quickly take you through a short introduction to what the Spark Fund was. Nina, could you pull up the presentation? Cool. So the Spark Fund invests in youth-led and youth-focused groups tackling injustice and inequality, driving transformational change, and building a more inclusive post-pandemic world by harnessing the power of digital technologies. So Global Fund for Children and Avast Foundation established the Spark Fund because they had a shared commitment to empowering the next generation to promote human rights in the digital age. And often we see that youth are at the forefront of tackling issues in their communities, yet they are often missing from the decision-making of funding. So Spark Fund for us was an opportunity to pilot putting youth at the heart of decision-making. So the aims were to shift power to young people to make decisions as they are at the forefront of tackling social justice issues, and also strengthening networks for advocacy, movement building, and learning about uniting youth-led and youth-focused groups, increasing their capacity to influence long-term systematic change. So the process consisted of having 4 regional panels, youth panels in Southern Africa, South Asia, Europe and Eurasia, and Americas. And throughout this process, this led to a total of 56 Spark Fund partners in 13 countries globally. Next slide. We attempted to try and make the panel recruitment of the youth panelists as accessible as possible rather than burdensome for the panelists. Most of the panelists that we had were leaders of youth-led groups and from the communities that were directly impacted by inequality in their regions. And this was so valuable when designing the criteria and the fund itself. They brought knowledge, context, and passion to the designing process as they knew what their communities needed best. They also recognized that grant making can be burdensome for their communities, which resulted in the designing of the application questions, trying to ease that burden and be driven by values. It was very fascinating to see the knowledge and context that they brought to the design process and the experiences that they could relay in order to make sure that the application process and the designing actually reflected the communities that they work with. Now, the type of focus areas varied and ranged from climate change to education to mental health. And this was dependent on the region. So for example, in South Asia, the focus heavily was on climate change. Southern Africa focus was on education and employment. America's focus on indigenous communities, and Europe and Eurasia had a broader focus of youth and youth-led groups across the region. We also paid panelists a communication stipend and an honorarium for their time. Next slide. The role of technology in decision-making. So the aim of using tech was to make it a more inclusive and efficient process. Panelists used a voting platform designed by Shared Nation to review eligible applications. And we had eligible applications depending on what the youth panelists saw as eligible. So this was depending on what they considered to be youth, annual income of organizations, and also issues that were addressed by the organizations that applied to the Spark Fund. So the panelists favorited and used pairwise voting, and this helped them create a consensus-based approach. And this helped them inform decisions and helped them kind of come to a consensus on what organizations to choose for the final discussions. After the panelists favorited their top applicants and moved on to the pairwise voting round, they had a short list of organizations which they then discussed and chose their grantees. Next slide. So the Spark Fund's reach. So here's some of the data that we have so far. So 76% of 40 applicants, 40 panelists were new to making the funding decisions. 100% of panelists felt that they were able to influence their regional Spark Fund. We had 790 applications received globally, with majority from youth-led organizations, many of which have never received funding before. The total number of flexible funding given was $546,000 for 56 groups, with grant sizes ranging from $5,000 to $15,000. But here I would like to note that even though that we gave out $546,000, the number of applications that we had and the number of funding requested exceeded the amount, which means that there's still work to be done to support and fund youth-led groups and movements globally. Next slide. So here are some of the quotes that emphasize that the process of the Spark Fund was a two-way benefit for the young people that were involved, as well as ourselves. So youth making decisions whilst learning about the grant making process. So from the first quote, we can see that the individual had more of an understanding of philanthropy in the Africa region, which they did not have before, and also they gained confidence from the process. The second quote is having a much more of a better perspective of a funder and a donor. And this is something that a lot of organizations and groups have found as a barrier before, that they don't actually see from the perspective of a donor or a funder when applying for grants. And lastly, the third quote is about being included in decision-making and fully participating. For them, the Spark Fund allowed them to have freedom to make informed decisions without huge barriers in doing so and having to deal with bureaucratic processes. So if you would like to join us, or if you want to find out more about the work that we do or the Spark Fund generally, please drop us an email. We are more than happy to have a conversation. We are more than happy to kind of tell you more about the Spark Fund. And lastly, a huge thank you to all of our collaborators that you see on the screen. Thank you so much. Back to you, Solomon.
Thank you so much, Nas, for the great introduction of the Spark Fund. If you have just joined us, please introduce yourself in the chat and let us know where you are connecting from. And please also send in your questions that you have for the panelists using the Q&A function or using the chat. Without further ado, I would like to move into the event of the day. And welcome to our panelists who are connecting from all over the world. I'm very excited to be talking with Amar from the Asia panel, Moi from the Southern African panel, Irina from the Europe panel, and Becky from the Americas. I would like to invite the panelists to introduce themselves, starting with Moi. Can you introduce yourself and let us know why did you decide to get involved in the Spark Fund?
Thank you, Solomon. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone listening from around the world. My name is Moe. I'm 25 years old. I'm reporting from Windhoek, Namibia, and I was part of the Spark Fund Southern Africa panel. One of the reasons why I joined the panel was a lot of the work that I do here in Namibia is working with young children, youth and young children as well. So I thought it would be really cool to kind of get involved in not just the community side of the work, but also the grant making side of the work. It was, I think, really a good learning process, and it was kind of getting inside information that I think is valuable when we're talking about grant making and also applying for grants as a young person.
Thank you so much, Maury, for the great introduction. I'll hand over to Becky to self-introduce and let us know why did you decide to be part of the Spark Fund panelists.
Ok, muchas gracias, Salomón, por esta bienvenida. Quiero darle la bienvenida también a todas las personas que nos acompañan en este momento. Buenos días, buenas tardes o buenas noches, dependiendo del lugar del mundo que nos ven en este momento. Mi nombre es Vicky Borges. Me presento, soy una mujer trans, negra, nacida en Colombia, exactamente en Palmira, Valle del Cauca. ¿Por qué tomé la decisión de hacer parte del Fondo Spark? Porque me parece que como una mujer trans, negra, joven, también es importante que tengamos esta representación aquí en este espacio, además de que históricamente se nos ha negado como personas jóvenes a ser parte de estos espacios de toma de decisiones. Entonces, poder hacer parte de estos lugares donde podamos influir, tener voz y voto para las personas, organizaciones que están naciendo en muchos territorios que hacen un trabajo muy valioso, es demasiado importante para mí. Por eso tomé la decisión de estar en el Fondo Spark. Gracias.
Amazing, amazing, Becky. I'll hand over to Amar to self-introduce and let us know why did you decide to join the Spark Fund process.
Thank you so much, Solomon, and hi, everyone. And it is so nice to see you all from all over the world. And thank you so much again. So my name is Amar Lal, and I'm 25 years old, and I'm from India. And by profession, I'm a lawyer. So my life was a little bit similar because I used to, as in a bonded labor, I was rescued by the Nobel laureate, Mr. Kailash Satyarthi. I got opportunity to study, and I got to learn what is the right of the children. I was not that much privileged, but somehow I got that opportunity. And I completed my educations and I became a lawyer. And I learned how to fight for others. And I think the reason why I joined this panel, because what I always believe that whenever you making any decisions, when are you trying to make anything for this world, mostly for the children, for the youth, I think their consent, their decision is the most important if you are taking any decisions for them. So as in a young and youth person, I think I can really understand what is our challenges, what is our problem, what is the solution. So if someone asks, I can give some solution on my way, and if someone listen, and if it's apply in the same way, I think that is the best way to find the solutions of any problem. And I think what the GFC did, so that's why I really got interested to join it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amar. I'll hand over now to Irina to let us know who is Irina and why did you decide to become a panelist?
Thank you, Solomon, and hello all. Thank you so much for being here, and I really hope that this panel is an opportunity for a very productive discussion that we're going to have together. It's also such an honor to be speaking along amazing activists from many parts of the world. So thank you for thinking about me and for including me in this panel. So I'm Irina Novak. I am 22 years old, and I'm a young feminist activist from Romania, Bucharest, and I'm currently working with Voice Amplified as Romania team member. So I was part of the first cohort of the Spark Fund in Eastern and Caucasus region. which was such an interesting and flourishing experience in my life that I'm really, really excited to talk about today. So the reason why I decided to apply was that I really wanted to connect with other activists across the region and to see if we share the same perspective about issues that young people are facing in our countries. And I was very, very excited to be part of a new project where we were given a platform as young people, and that I really, really believed in. So I'm looking forward to our discussion today. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. It's great to know that these young people, they participated in funding 56 organizations from 13 countries around the world. And they managed to fund to about $500,000 US. Back to you, Vicky. What was the Spark Fund process like? Just in brief.
Ok, pues este proceso acá en el tema de las Américas inició con bastantes dudas, ¿sí? Todas como tal siendo activistas desde territorios diferentes, porque en las Américas formamos parte del proceso países como Colombia, Perú y México. Entonces son realidades que de alguna u otra manera son semejantes por ser Latinoamérica, pero también si hablamos contextualmente de Colombia, es todo muy diverso, porque las problemáticas que se viven en el Pacífico colombiano no son las mismas que se viven en las ciudades principales, digamos Bogotá, Medellín, Cartagena, son otras ciudades muy grandes y las problemáticas son muy diferentes, y así mismo pasa en otros países. Entonces, encontrarse con todas estas otras problemáticas, encontrarse también con estos otros interrogantes que habían de cómo íbamos a llegar también a estas poblaciones, a estos lugares que estaban ejerciendo este trabajo de alguna u otra manera, fue esa incógnita que nos dijimos, o sea, ¿cómo vamos a llegar aquí? ¿Cómo vamos a llegar a impactar también a estas poblaciones? ¿Cómo vamos a llegar? Porque era también la duda, creo que para todas las personas que estábamos allí como participantes del panel, siempre era la duda de cómo vamos a llegar a darle el dinero o a activar este dinero para las organizaciones que de verdad se lo merezcan en el sentido de su trabajo que estén haciendo. Y claramente todas las personas que se postularon son muy valiosas, es un trabajo demasiado valioso en el territorio, pero no podíamos escoger a todas, teníamos que escoger un grupo muy pequeño, y de verdad que ahí nos basamos principalmente fue en el trabajo, en poder tener en cuenta a la juventud, tener en cuenta el trabajo que están haciendo desde la interseccionalidad, de poder incluir a todas las poblaciones mayoritariamente. Entonces, no ha sido fácil, no fue fácil el trabajo, pero ahí estamos poco a poco haciéndolo.
Thank you so much. Amazing, amazing. Let's hear from Africa. How was the process like for you, Mowi?
Okay, so I think the process for everyone was a really big learning curve. In the beginning, I always like to say that it kind of started out as like this big sort of slab of stone. And at the end, you have to have like a sculpture that you carve out of it. We didn't really know where to begin, because I think a lot of us have not been grant makers or involved in such a process before. But again, this is where GFC came in, and they gave us the tools, but then they told us you have to do it yourself. So it was, I think, a learning curve, but I think we did well. It was also really important for us to make sure that we highlighted or tried to give groups and organizations that would often be overlooked. We wanted to give them a chance, because a lot of us that were on we have been involved in such that have been overlooked in the past by funders. So we really wanted to say, okay, we're backing ourselves, we're backing young people this time, and we're going to go out and really trust them. So I think that aspect was something that was important for us, was trust-based philanthropy, making sure that even if the organization wasn't as glitzy and glamorous in terms of like all their evaluations and reports or financial stability, that they really had the heart, and that we sort of emphasized that a bit more. So yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful, Mowi. From the Europe and Eurasia region, how was the process like for you, Irina?
Yeah, it was very interesting for us because we were the first ones to, be part of the Spark Fund. So it was also an honor, but at the same time a bit of pressure because no one had done this before. And I remember I was personally very surprised, and it felt a bit weird that Global Fund for Children just gave us this platform and they were like, okay, so what do you want to do now? And there were some things that I would have never thought that we would be able to be included in and to decide ourselves. So it was, I didn't know that to expect that. So it was very interesting, and it was so good to have that freedom and to decide among ourselves. And of course, also in our panel, we were people with different experiences, different interests. So of course, there were some moments when we had some contradictions, that we had to make compromises with each other. But I really think that the number of the applications, we had over 100 something applications. I don't even remember. I remember I spent a lot of time reading on the applications. I really think this reflected that this kind of fund is really needed in our region and everywhere in the world.
Awesome. It's great to know that nothing for the youth without the youth. To you, Amar, what was the process like for you in Asia?
Okay, so it was also the first experience for me when I was part for any decisions making, and not only decision making, when you are deciding like where fund should goes. So there were like from 3 countries, young youth leaders who joined our panel from India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. And it's a different reasons and different kind of the challenges, but I think all people from different, all these 3 countries, they have a different kind of experience they have been through from different organizations, working experience and all. So I think it was really a good learning process with all of them, and kind of the supports given by the GFC team for all of us. They give the freedom. We were allowed to say anything. We really care about each other. We really respect the decision of each other. And this was like first time, like you are the youth leader, and now you can decide like which are the organization, or maybe which are the people who are doing a good and better around your place, in your city, or maybe in your country, and you choose, and it's your decision that what should be the right. So I think that's really give a confidence being a youth person. So yeah, it was amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'd like to remind you to send us any questions that you have for these young panelists via the chat or the Q&A. And also, if you have just joined us, just let us know where you're joining us from, who are you, and the organization that you represent, if you can. Moving on to you, Irina. During the design phase of the Europe and Eurasia panel, what emerged as important elements for you personally and the panel?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Solomon. So each of the panelists came with, again, different background and shared different issues that they felt that affect young people in the countries in our region. We shared in common the need for activism, particularly in regards to social justice issues, such as gender equality, or better said, inequality, which includes issues such as lack of proper sexual health and reproductive rights, education, gender-based violence, or even gender stereotypes that disproportionately affect girls and women. At the same time, these issues intersect with others such as ethnic or racial discrimination, or class disparities, disability, gender identities, and sexual orientation. So we had a lot of applications, and they were all very diverse, and it was so many issues that young people were dealing with in their regions. And but at the same time, we also noted the need for more projects that were focused on youth from rural areas in our countries, because they do not really have access to enough or even any personal growth opportunities. So of everything, basically, a lot of things.
Thank you so much. To you, Becky, what emerged as important elements for you personally and the panel in the Americas?
Ok, aquí en este espacio en realidad tuvimos en cuenta mucho el tema de la población joven y rural. Porque claro, como lo acaba de mencionar Irina, muchas veces estas convocatorias no llegan a los espacios rurales, no llegan. Y entonces también hay que tener en cuenta que no tienen acceso a la información como la tienen las personas que están en la ciudad completamente, y asimismo también de elaborar la propuesta como tal para la subvención. Entonces es importante también esto de poder llegar a esos espacios rurales, porque no se tiene la educación de alguna u otra manera para poder acceder a esos espacios. Entonces aquí fue demasiado importante poder llegar y poder también recibir todas esas convocatorias. Yo recuerdo que fueron muchísimas que tuvimos que leer, sentarnos allí y ver cada una de ellas, que cada vez que las leíamos y volvíamos a releer para poder tomar decisiones, porque eran unas propuestas muy poderosas de, como lo mencionaba también Irina, o sea, es algo global, y es pues el tema de identidad de género, el tema de orientaciones sexuales, el tema étnico también, porque recibimos muchas propuestas de personas indígenas, personas afro. Entonces tenerlas aquí en cuenta y también ver el trabajo que se está haciendo desde los territorios, desde las zonas rurales, fue demasiado poderoso, y cada que leía esas propuestas se me aguaban los ojos, me daba una emoción impresionante de ver el trabajo que se está haciendo y que de alguna u otra manera se quede.
Thank you so much, Vicky. To you, Amar, could you tell us about the design process and how that drove to the themes chosen by the Asia panelists, and why?
Okay, so from the Asia panel, like first we had a last discussions about like what kind of the problems in those three countries we are having, what kind of the issues we are seeing around us. And then at the end, we specify three problems, which is the most often we find in our areas. One was the health, second was the education, and third was the environment. Yeah, so this was the like a final decision which was taken by our group, that we are going to most focus on these problems, and there are a lot of problems which is most related to these issues. So we had a lot of big discussion about different kind of the issues, but we more focused about these core groups. So the applications which came to us, they were more related to these problems and these issues, and there were like more than like almost like a 200 applications, yeah, we received from three countries. And the most biggest focus for our panel is that we need to focus for those organizations, or maybe those youth-led organizations who are working on the grassroots level for the real change. Yeah, not for like making any documentations or maybe making so many good things, but you do not have a support, and they really need a support from financially. Yeah, so you're working on a ground for the big change and a grassroots levels, not from a very long time, but but you really need a support. So that was the target from our panel. Yeah, so that was the process to choose.
Thank you so much, Amar. To you, Moi. Think about the organizations that you choose as a panel. What made your panel to specifically choose those organizations?
Okay, so I think for us, we try to focus on making sure that the groups that we chose were groups that were really, again, as Amar said, that were working on the grassroots level. So for us, it didn't really matter how long the group had existed. We tried to pick more smaller groups, for example, that again would have been overlooked had it been a more traditional sort of grant process. So I think smaller groups, we made sure that they were youth-led and youth-focused. Again, we're going all in with our young people. We were backing ourselves on this. And we really believe that these smaller groups that were, again, working in smaller rural communities were also making a difference. At the same time, we also made sure that we sort of balanced the groups in that we funded groups that requested smaller amounts, tried to fund groups that also requested a bit larger amounts so that at least we balance it all and we're not just funding really big groups, but we're also funding smaller groups that might have a smaller scale impact, but still have an impact in their communities nonetheless. We also tried to make sure that all the different themes that we chose were equally represented. So we chose mental health, quality education, and disability as our 3 themes that we wanted to fund, and that it was also proportionally represented to the countries that we were working in. So it was Namibia, Lesotho, and Zimbabwe. So we also tried to balance that. And I think in the end, we did quite a good job in balancing all these things, but it was not easy.
Awesome, awesome. To you, back to you, Amar. When you think back to the selection process, were there particular themes that were common in your region? And were these similar to the themes prioritized by your panel?
Okay, is this question from me, Salome?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thanks. So I think there were like a lot of common problems which we found, and we really realized, like, you know, like when you think about the education, so what is the reason behind of the lacking of education? So there are a lot of reasons, like people are not aware, or maybe there are a lot of people who are like the system is not properly working, or maybe they do not have any kind of the support from the government sides, or maybe they do not have any good approach, or maybe they are not getting the necessary things which are really required for them. So from our group, we identify what is the 3 most biggest problems around our areas, which really relate and which really most affect the life of most of children, or maybe the young people. So I think one of the education, one of the health and the environment, and these are the issues and these are the problems which I think most of people they are required in their life. So these 3 problems were the most common from our group, which we had more discussed. And the application also we asked from the same kind of the topic which relate to these 3 problems, and we identify to those organizations who really deserve for this funding, who really require such kind of the amount of money to work on the grassroots level, to lead their organization, to really help and give the benefit to the people who are really need into it. So from our group, the most biggest concern was whatever decision we are making, are we making the right one? Or maybe the people we are choosing, or maybe are they going to utilize the fund in a very right way? So it was a very long discussion. Decision-making process was not so easy, but I think everybody was so brilliant, yeah, and they did an amazing, great job, and we shared a lot of views with each other, and we finally took that, okay, who is the right person, or maybe which is the right organization who really need our money to focus on the grassroots level where we are going to be most focused.
Thank you, thank you. To you, Vicky, what would you say was the biggest lesson or reflection or insight that you gained throughout this process?
Bueno, aquí debo decir que la mayor lección que aprendí fue aprender a escuchar los diferentes puntos de vista, porque claramente debemos entender de que no todas las personas pensamos igual. Entonces, aquí poder llegar a un consenso por el bien como tal de una población, de una comunidad, fue demasiado importante. Poder trabajar también en equipo desde la juntanza fue demasiado poderoso, y allí vuelvo y digo, no sé si de pronto en lo que estaba hablando ahora se alcanzó a escuchar, y es que recibimos tantas personas, tantas postulaciones, que cada vez que leíamos cada una de ellas era demasiado, o sea, había muchos sentimientos encontrados, porque es ver el trabajo que se está haciendo desde cada uno de los territorios que muchas veces no se tiene en cuenta, que se tienen invisibilizados porque no llegan en realidad a todos estos lugares que de verdad deberían ser. Entonces, es demasiado poderoso encontrarse con todo eso, ese trabajo que están haciendo en el territorio, en las zonas rurales de esos países que se tuvieron en cuenta en Latinoamérica. Y para mí eso fue lo más gratificante, lo más poderoso de haber participado de este proceso.
Thank you so much, Vicky. To you, Irina, what role did GFC play as the funder in the Spark Fund process from the design stage to the selection of grantee partners?
Thank you for the question, Solomon. Yeah, I'm very grateful for the platform that Global Fund for Children gave us, because again, we were the first ones being part of the panel for the Spark Fund. And we read the application and we kind of knew what we were going to do, but not really. We mostly decided among ourselves what we were going to do. And it was so powerful to actually be able to have that freedom and to decide among ourselves, because we do know better what are the issues, what is the social reality of our countries, of our young people, and because we are young people living in our countries. So it was really, really important to actually have the privilege and the opportunity to meet in the same space and to talk and to debate and to compromise at the same time, while GFC was taking notes and they were trying to help us navigate this if there were some issues coming up or anything. So basically they just had a more of a moderator role. Everything was very horizontal. So it was really empowering. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Great, awesome. To you, Moi, what was the process like? What was the role GFC played in this process, from the design stage to the selection of the grantee partners?
Thank you, Solomon. So I will 100% agree with Irina. GFC really took a back seat, and where it came to any sort of decision that we made, big decisions that involved us like deciding which groups to pick, but even little decisions like what we wanted our core values to be. Because at the beginning, we came together as a group and we had to discuss sort of core values and commitments that we would make as a group. Even like little things like that, GFC made like just stood back and they let us make every single decision. Even when we came at loggerheads and we were sort of going back and forth regarding our criteria, for example, GFC just would put up a poll or would help us sort of to vote for it. So it was very democratic for us as panelists. We really were empowered to make our own decision every step of the way. And then if we were struggling, then GFC would sort of help like give us advice, but they would never make a decision for us. So I think throughout the entire step, it's important to emphasize that GFC was really just like a moderator, as Irina said, and we really decided everything from beginning to the end.
Thank you so much, Moi. Thank you so much. Great to hear that GFC is taking the lead in shifting the power to young people. Just a reminder for you to send us your questions that you have for the panelists via the chat or the Q&A. Moving on to you, Amal. How can funders better understand issues affecting young people in certain regions and countries before setting their priority funding areas?
Okay, so I think the best way to understand that where to fund and what should be your priorities. So I think the GFC is done the best thing for it because they choose the young youth leader from around the world, yeah, and they give you the lead. Okay, come in the front and tell us like what next, yeah, what we need to do, what is the problem. So you know the problem, now your turn, tell us what is the solution, right? So being a youth and young person and you are living in those areas, you know what is the challenges and you also know what is the solution, and the GFC giving you that platform, give your problems, give your challenge, and then you are the person who will be the resource person of the solution. So I think that is the best way to find out a solution of any kind of the problems, and that's what we're doing. And I always say, and I always believe, and I always want that. If you want to make any law, if you want to implement anything in your country, in the world, if you're really doing something for anyone, I think when you're taking any decisions, you need to listen the voice of the people who are really into it, people who are suffering, people who are you making the law. So I think that's really amazing decisions from the GFC came, and we are the person who knows the problem, and we are the person who are finding the solution. So I think that's the best way to find any problems and find a solution.
That's awesome. That's awesome. To you, Becky, do you think, what do you think if the panelists who got to decide for the funding in the Americas were not from the region, or probably from another region, were they going to come up with the same themes and same issues as the panelists from the region?
Ok, mencioné al comienzo, de alguna u otra manera, aquí en Latinoamérica se viven unas problemáticas similares, que no son las mismas, pues dependiendo exactamente de la zona de ubicación en el país donde estemos, pero se viven unas problemáticas similares y por eso llegamos como a este consenso de cuáles eran las problemáticas fuertes que se estaban viviendo en estos territorios para poder llegar a ese consenso allí y tomar la decisión de qué era lo que íbamos a tener en cuenta. Aquí fue demasiado importante, vuelvo y digo, el escucharnos, porque es eso, no es imponer que la problemática que yo estoy poniendo tal vez en este espacio es la más importante, sino llegar al consenso de escucharnos y saber qué está pasando en otros territorios que tal vez yo los estoy dejando por fuera, o situaciones que yo no he vivido y porque yo no he vivido, entonces no son importantes o no son valiosas o no se deben cambiar. Entonces, el escuchar a otros de otras problemáticas que se han vivido, demasiado necesario, demasiado importante para tenerlo aquí en la tarea y poder manejar desde este enfoque interseccional que nos permita poder avanzar como sociedad.
Thank you, Vicky. That's great. It's great to hear that funders are willing to move close to the beneficiaries, to hear from the beneficiaries what are the priority areas in their areas. Thank you so much. We move on to the questions that we have from the audience. I'll start with Irina. There's a question from the audience. Why do you think you were so successful with your reach? What was the secret to getting so many and such diverse applications?
Yeah, I think it was very easy. Organizations needed money. So JFC offered this really great opportunity to offer flexible money, because a lot of the grants that I also encountered as an activist, they all required a lot of paperwork. And the reality is that I know a lot of activists who are in very bad burnout and who deserve to be paid and who deserve to be able to redirect money on their salaries. And I really think that that was very important to actually have the opportunity to have flexible funding. There were some organizations, like we actually had an internal debate in our team, because some people did not really agree with being totally flexible, and they were like, we need to set up a limit for staff salaries. And then some of us were like, no, we shouldn't, because there are some grants that actually expect so much from activists, but they don't actually want them to be paid. And that is a problem that is happening a lot in my region. And a lot of activists, again, are doing amazing work. And this comes with a really big compromise for their own personal and mental life and mental situations. And they are poor, they are paid so poorly. And I really think donors should really think about this, that people need to be paid properly and that they need to be supported. So I really think a lot of organizations applied to this because of this, because they needed money. It was a pretty rare opportunity. So everyone just applied, they took it, and we were so happy to actually be able to provide some money for some of these organizations.
Great insights indeed, great insights. To you, Moe, another question from the panel, from the audience. What program areas do young people in your region want funders to prioritize?
Thank you for that question. I think in our region right now, I would say education and access to education. Whilst we do have basic education, a lot of kids sort of, I think from, let's say grade 7, so like 12, 13, 14, the transition to high school isn't really as smooth. So I also think, let me say, after school programs and support systems that will help keep children in school are also really lacking. So we have really high dropout rates, also really high teen pregnancy rates in Namibia. So I think if there's like a support system where children can actually say, okay, I fell pregnant, but now I can still continue my education because there's a shelter where I can like take or daycare where I can take my daughter for the day and then I can still like finish school. I think things like that are important, and also just spaces where young people can sort of be productive. And because again, young people fall into the trap of drugs and alcohol, and it gets quite bad here in Namibia. So I think, again, creating safe spaces where young people can use their time and their energy, because we have a lot of it, for productive things, or for at least things that will build us up. I think that is important. Second thing I have to mention is we have a really bad rape culture in Namibia, where women are being raped a lot. So I think sort of education on sexual and reproductive health, but also like safe spaces again for women, and raising awareness amongst our cultures and in our communities to say, okay, just because I wore a short skirt does not mean that, you know, you should, it's not an invitation for you to rape me. So I think those are the two things in our region that are important.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. To you, BK, we have another question from the audience. How did you try to reach our diverse communities to apply to your regional Spark Fund?
Ok, en ese sentido fue unas difusiones que hicimos para poder llegar a esas comunidades. Al decir diversas, pues entiendo en realidad como todo, porque pues hay diversidad en todo. Entonces, poder llegar a estas comunidades como tal, por ejemplo, la zona rural, que normalmente las convocatorias nunca llegan a las zonas rurales, poder llegar también a comunidades LGTBI, porque pues sí, hay muchas convocatorias que se dice como son enfocadas en temas LGTBI, pero en realidad se escogen muy pocas. Entonces también se tuvo en cuenta a nivel Latinoamérica, a nivel de las Américas, todas estas poblaciones, poder manejar otras maneras de difusión, como por ejemplo la radio, por ejemplo también Instagram, subirlo a nuestros perfiles personales, poder manejar diferentes maneras de difusión y no como las que habitualmente se manejan, poder salirnos de este contexto que de alguna u otra manera deja por fuera a muchas organizaciones que se están trabajando, que no tienen un acceso continuo a Internet, sino que poder también escucharlo de alguna u otra manera por algo más cotidiano.
Thank you so much, Vicky. To you, Amal, how can we get more young people to be involved in grant making process? It's another question from the audience.
I think if we want to involve the more people, I think awareness is the most important thing for all of us. And the second thing, we always talk about the opportunity. Yeah. So we need to give them a chance, because I think everybody has something special, unique. And there are a lot of young youth, children, people, they really want to do something. They really want to do a lot. They want to change something in their society. They have so much spark inside them, but maybe they don't know what is the way. So I think if they know the way, maybe if we can make aware them, like there are, for example, I give example from India. Like there are many people, they don't know what is the child labor, because the people, they grow in a very good family, they had a very good life, they have been they brought up in a very good family, they have been into college, university, studied and everything. And when they come to us and meet us, when I have a sometime discussion with them, but they are not aware about like what is the child labor, what is the issues with the children, is there any issues that children are really working in those areas. So maybe if I think we can aware people, we can let them know like what is the real issues in this world. People who are not aware, I think that is the best way. So I think there are many young youth people, they want to do a lot something, they have a lot of good idea, they want to do something nice for many, but maybe they are not aware. So I think if we can give them a way, and if we can also give them opportunity, I think so many things can change, and youth participation can become the most priority for all of us. And as long as and as much as we give the opportunity to youth, I think there is a more possibility to a good change in the universe.
Thank you so much, Amar. To you, Moi, what did you like about using the technology and a voting platform to help make decisions? What might you change about it?
Thank you, Solomon. I think the voting platform was really cool, actually, because as with all the regions, we got a lot of applications. So it was filtered down for us. We didn't have to like go through every single application manually and then put it in like a yes or no pile, because it was all digital. It really streamlined the process. And I really liked the pairwise voting. So you put two organizations next to each other, and then you just like pick which one do you like and which one would you prefer over the other one. And it kind of helped put things in like an order for us. So I really liked it. If there was something I could change, honestly, I think it had some glitches at the beginning, but once we sorted that out, I think it's a really good platform, and I think all people should use it as a grant making tool, I think. Yeah.
We are almost on time. Vicky, any final thoughts before we close?
Ok, bien, no, me gustaría que las demás organizaciones o fondos globales como tal se pensaran en el tema de incluir a personas jóvenes en este tema de subvención de fondos, porque es demasiado importante. Muchísimas veces son solamente personas adultas y mayores que están tomando decisiones sobre las problemáticas que se viven en los territorios, pero nunca han vivido las problemáticas, nunca se han enfrentado a las situaciones que se viven en estos territorios. Entonces, para mí fue un acierto muy grande lo que hizo GFC, desde el Fondo Spark, entonces seguiría como, pues esa que sería como una tarea, y todas las organizaciones que hacen todo esto de subvención de fondos, que incluyeran de verdad las poblaciones como tal en el proceso de toma de decisiones.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Irina, do you have any closing thoughts? Just 30 seconds.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I really think that making space for young people really requires giving them the platform to lead, and that really includes that really involves actively including them in decision-making processes and decision-making boards. And here I don't mean include only one young person, because that is definitely not enough. Like, make sure that you include as many perspectives as possible, because not also every young person has the same lived experience. So that should be reflected on your boards. And also really important, pay them, because not everyone has the privilege to do volunteering work, because a lot of young people are in school or need to take up jobs to be able to support themselves. And you will be so surprised to see how anchored young people are in social realities, and you will definitely not regret them, and your donations are going to be more accountable. So thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you so much for those final thoughts. On behalf of Global Fund for Children and the Youth Leadership Council, to be specific, I would really like to thank you all for being here today to share your experiences, and we want to celebrate you all and all of the youth panel members who made the Spark Fund process possible. We really can't wait to see how the groups and organizations you selected will lead social change in your regions with this funding and capacity development. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. To learn more about the Spark Fund and Youth Leadership Council, please check on the link in the chat. If you'd like to get in touch about the Spark Fund, please do reach out to our email address, sparkfund@globalfundforchildren.org. Thank you so much and goodbye.